I'm kind of wondering if we will have to debate Socrates. That would be an awkward battle, wouldn't it? Socrates, your point? Well, my point is this, Socrates. Ah, good point, Socrates. But have you thought of this, Socrates? Socrates? Yes, Arbiter. I have been pondering your request that I bring forth my best. Seems to me that attempting to assign a quality hierarchy to the philosophers in this realm would be demeaning. I have thus determined that when you requested my best, you meant my most challenging. Wait, what? So, on that note, allow me to present you Immanuel Kant. His thoughts are indeed quite challenging. Guten Tag, Socrates Jones. Oh God, good luck with this one. I could only ever get through the first couple of pages of his work. I hope you've enjoyed your stay in philosophical kindergarten. For the conflicting methods you have employed to confuse other philosophers will not work here. Why not? No reason. I simply needed to fulfill the prerequisite grandstanding. Grandstanding, check. Okay then. Kant, if you would please explain your philosophy as clearly as possible. Of course, Arbiter. First, I must counter the unreasoned thoughts of other philosophers. Any truly moral philosophy must, first and foremost, protect human dignity. As consequentialist, thought naturally violates our pride as men. We must work from an intentionalist grounding. Excuse me? I'm already confused. Join the club. Give me a moment, Herr Jones, and I shall explain. Herr Jones, guten Tag. Intentionalism. There are many things which men covet as good. However, a focus on consequences reduces men to mere means, undermining human dignity. In reality, the only thing that is good without qualification is goodwill. Thus, we are moral if our will is defined by the intention of doing the moral thing. And there we go. As you can see, I am approaching this from a different angle than the neophytes you debated before. I see. So wait, the consequences of actions don't matter at all? At the very least, they are irrelevant to moral worth. Of course, ideally, one's actions would also have positive consequences, but it is positive intentions that are essential to be of moral character. Socrates, are you ready to continue? All right, here goes. So far, this does not seem too bad. Yes, Arbiter. Ja, let us begin then. Kant is pronounced Kant, like convict. Okay. He's German, so I guess I'll let it slide. There are many things which men covet as good. What do you mean by this? I believe this is simply stated. Our disorganized society holds many things in high esteem. You back it? Over your time here, you have encountered individuals who believe good to be found in all sorts of things: security, happiness, piety. I believe this diversity is enough to support my premise. How is this relevant? I'm acknowledging that the diversity and breadth of moral theory seems only fitting to recognize the scope of the field we enter, does it not? Said it right, it's German. However, a focus on consequences reduces men to mere means, undermining human dignity. Can you clarify this? I mean that getting caught up in various ends, whether they be happiness, a social contract, or piety, causes one to lose sight of what is most important. They turn our beings into mere tools for an arbitrary goal, cogs in a careless and soulless machine. Backing? Believe you have actually discovered this yourself, Socrates Jones. Take, for example, John Stuart Mill and his philosophy of utilitarianism. By arbitrarily assigning the status of ultimate end to happiness, the philosophy completely ignores human rights and dignity. And Hobbes's idea that good rests in security, any rational person would question how much we must sacrifice to enforce such an ideal. No, all of these philosophies are looking in the wrong places. They are claiming the contingent and ephemeral as eternal without any justification. Mankind must not be reduced to the means of some other goal. Any philosophy that does so has become mired in consequentialism. Consequentialism. That is a word. And it's just consequential with an ism after it. But for whatever reason, consequentialism is just a word. Right. All right, relevance. Deals with many of the ideas of previous philosophers in one swoop, showing their philosophies to be full of irrationalities. Just think, if your thoughts were as organized as I, you could have gotten here much sooner. A focus on consequences reduces men to mere means, undermining human dignity. Interesting. In reality, the only thing that is good without qualification is goodwill. Clarify. Goodwill is always good. There is no situation in which harboring goodwill could be immoral. Well, we definitely know that is wrong. You can do things with good intentions and still harm people. Can you back it? As a man cannot possibly know the consequences of his actions, it is only fit to judge the will upon which he acts. When this will is good, there can be no doubt that, regardless of effect, his actions were moral in nature. Oh, this guy is, oof. He's going deep into the rabbit hole. Assessing the will is the only way to keep man as an end and maintain his dignity. So what you're saying is, when I tell Ari she can't go to a party because I'm concerned for her, my action is noble regardless of her response. This is correct. Dad. Interesting. This related. This is my conclusion, Herr Jones. Most of the goods laid out are invalid. Only this one stands in all situations. Thus, we are moral if our will is defined by the intention of doing the moral thing. What do you mean? As long as we intend to act morally, then we ourselves are moral. This seems pretty straightforward, does it not, Herr Jones? But how do we know whether the intended course of action is moral? By whether or not it adheres to the categorical imperatives, of course. Oh, of course. No, wait, hold on. What? Kant? These things you just mentioned. Categorical imperatives? Yes, what are they exactly? Indeed, I don't believe you ever explained those. My apologies. Categorical imperatives are the moral laws we should seek to discover. Listen closely, I shall explain. If we intend to always do the moral thing, we must develop rules or maxims to shape our actions. There are certain actions which we must always avoid. Other actions we should take at every opportunity. These ideas form rules that we must follow at all times, regardless of emotion or consequence. These rules are categorical imperatives. Okay, the confusion people feel about this man's ideas makes sense now. Where should I begin? Kant? Apologies, Herr Jones. I was momentarily distracted by your beard. It is unsightly. How can one stand to have such a blemish upon one's face? Hey, the goatee is one of the few cool things about my dad. Oh, thanks, Ari. Personally, I always liked the sweater vest. Well, regardless of how you feel about my beard or my sweater vest, I have questions for you, Kant. Of course, ask away. All right, all right. I have to do it. This man disrespected my goatee. I gotta disrespect his face. Well, your face is ugly. Have face called ugly with little justification or reason. Check. Immanuel Kant, the progenitor of sending thoughts and prayers on Facebook. Game is making you really think? Yeah, absolutely. The first couple of them weren't that bad. You know, like the salesman, you know, wasn't that crazy. And I think the guy right after him wasn't that crazy, but it started ramping up there. You know, when we started getting into the loop functions, I started the cogs were turning. Okay, so I gotta question everything. If we intend to always do the moral thing, we must develop rules or maxims to shape our actions. The morality of action stems from the rules which govern it. In order to properly assess our intentions, we must therefore clearly define these rules. Okay. This is very much a continuation of my last argument. Our intentions must be defined somehow, and we should root them in the rules that shape what we should and should not do. If we are unable to define such rules, we will be truly lost. Interesting. It establishes the link between my previous ideas and the ones I'm about to espouse, the marble foundation upon which my tower of reason will be built. Kant literally played the "your face is ugly" argument. He sure did. What a jerk. There are certain actions which we must always avoid. What do you mean by this? There are certain things that are clearly always wrong when the maxim behind them is examined. Backing? This seems like a grand statement. Do you have an example? Lying is an example. To lie is to spread deceit among men. By a lie, a man annihilates his dignity as a man. Thus, one should never lie, ever. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I admit, like, I'm not a person who will lie necessarily, but there are situations where lying is could be considered the moral high ground, you know? So that's a very interesting philosophy he's going about. Right, relevance. I'm describing the first sort of imperative, the negative sort. You instantly have such issues with this guy. His argument is that good intentions are all that matter, and then immediately says, no, follow these rules. It is kind of weird that a lot of these philosophers have done that, where it's, you know, this is the pursuit to what makes morality, and then after you know, a particular hole might have been poked into that, they then implement that rules actually have to be implemented. And once you start implementing rules into morality, you start opening up a whole nother can of worms that probably shouldn't exist. Maybe they should. You know, that's philosophy for you. Let's check out this challenge real quick. Kant believes that lying is one of the actions which is categorically immoral. Other actions we should take at every opportunity. What do you mean by this? Certain actions are clearly always good and should be followed. Okay, well, I got that. Give me an example. Helping a dying man. By attempting to render such assistance, one respects human dignity. Thus, one should always render their assistance. Ah, see, Dad? Kant also says I did the right thing. I thought you weren't much of a Kant fan. Hush, validation is always nice, even if it comes at a confusing package. Helping a dying man. You can always help a really horrible dying man, like, you know, he just murdered 1 billion people. You know, something like that. Relevant? Describing another type of imperative, the positive sort. Okay. These ideas form rules that we must follow at all times, regardless of emotion or consequence. What do you mean by this? The maxims which we can deem to be imperatives must be treated as if they are the laws of nature. Even if, in a specific situation, the outcome may seem personally painful, we have no choice but to follow them. One cannot simply choose to ignore gravity. I can. My metaphor still works. I love it. I love it. Why such a strict line? When we deem some maxim to be moral, we must follow it. Or if we do not, then the power of the idea is undermined, and no good can come from it. Huh. Any relevance? Details the extent to which imperatives should affect our lives, thus the extent of the applicability of the idea. I think I said that right. I want him to say this one more time. The third time. Power of the idea is undermined and no good can come from it. I think this plays on my idea that you can do a good thing, but it can be a bad thing. And that kind of, I mean, that goes with lying and helping a dead man. Although, maybe lying is a little bit more relevant there. Or at least less extreme. These rules are categorical imperatives. What does that mean exactly? Simple. They are categorical, meaning they apply to everyone without exception. They are also imperative, meaning they tell us how to behave. Kant was always making up terms, Dad. That's part of what made him such a lovely read. Okay, backing. Being a term I coined and assigned, I don't think that is necessary. I choose that term, so it is the right one. Okay, relevance. Well, in reality, it provides a name for what I have described here. Okay, any ideas, Ari? Nope, none whatsoever. I told you I don't understand a word this man says. Wonderful. Well, back to the top. So like, what if you're just following the rules? That's not good intentions. That's an interesting thing. Never forget, the road to the underworld is paved with good intentions. Ah, yeah, there you go. Okay. I think I'm going to challenge this one with lying. I mean, again, I think either of these could help, but I think lying is the less extreme of them, and thus will, game design-wise, get the answer I seek. Hold on just a moment. Kant, you claim that we should never lie, correct? That telling the truth is a categorical imperative. Indeed, it is the prime example of one. Right. And you also claim that we must follow the imperatives without fail, is that correct? Correct, Herr Jones. Well, that's interesting, because using only those two facts, it seems to be we are already in a worrisome place. Oh? I will admit that in most situations, lying is not the most moral of choices. But there is no denying that there are some situations when the truth can be deadly. Situations where lying would be the better thing to do. Let's say one was sheltering fugitives from an oppressive regime, keeping them hidden from the forces which would persecute them. Seems to me that keeping them hidden is clearly the right choice, but you would want us to blab to every person who shows up at the door. This strikes me as empirically wrong. Oh, interesting. Way to go, Dad. Heels, I'm gonna need a translation on Nicht schon wieder Bit? I hope I didn't say any curse words in German, but if I did, I didn't say them because I don't know what those words mean. I've never seen those words before. Right. You can swear in German all you want, but you have a point. Earlier, you stated that things which need qualification cannot be the origin of morality. Well, your prime example of an imperative just demanded qualification. Nicht schon wider beat. Not a bit further, please, is what that means. Thank you, Heels. Our resident German expert, or he is on the resident German expert panel. We also have Ken on that panel, who is actually German. Well, what do you have to say to that, Kant? Doesn't the intention of protecting these people also have value? Even from your perspective, this law seems far from universal.
Nonsense!
Excuse me, I have to go take my morning walk. He just walked off. He does that sometimes, do not worry. Oh, you're back. Indeed, my morning walk is completed. Morning walk? Check. Is there even morning in the intelligible realm? No, there isn't. It is unacceptable. But regardless, back on task. Socrates Jones, the counterpoint you gave earlier, was false. That one should not lie still stands as universal. Despite your objections, there is no doubt that to lie in that situation would be immoral. Categorical imperatives stand as absolute, without qualification. But, you seriously standing by his position? Is he even allowed to do that? Remember, Herr Jones, consequences are irrelevant. It is only our intention that matters. To become too invested in an individual scenario is to undermine the sanctity of thought. Once a maxim fulfills the universality test, it can be accepted as a categorical imperative. To that point, we are obligated to obey it, always. The universality test. Yeah, the method through which we discover and verify categorical imperatives. Allow me to elaborate. In order to verify the morality of an idea, one must subject it to the universality test. Imagine a world in which everyone follows the maxim behind your action. If a contradiction or irrationality arises, the maxim cannot be moral. And there we go. Really? That was like 2 lines. Explain the universality test. Check. Okay, hold on a moment. What the heck are these things you keep checking off? I have created an agenda. All the tasks which I need to accomplish are presented upon it in a sufficient detail. The events of this debate are on your agenda? How is that even possible? Careful planning. Wisdom, Socrates Jones, is organized life. And an organized person would be asking me questions right about now. Right. This is getting harder and harder to deal with. I can't present something I don't understand, but I'm not sure how much longer I can go. Got to find something and quick. Kant is literally the embodiment of, oh, you have an issue with this thing I invented? Let me invent another thing to address that. Oh, man. Oh, man. In order to verify the morality of an idea, one must subject it to the universality test. Let's go with clarification. You must verify that your maxim stands as valid in all situations. Backing. We have established that our principles must be unquestionably moral, yes? Well, in order to ensure such is the case, we must create a situation where every potential question would have to be asked. Thus, the universality test is required. And relevance. I know where this is going to go, but I'm pressing it. This illustrates the nature of the test. In order to verify the morality of an idea, one must subject it to the universality. Imagine in a world in which everyone follows the maxim behind your action. What do you mean by this? Essentially, in every situation where someone is faced with a choice where they could follow your maxim or not, they would follow it. That is the world you will be imagining. Well, it is an instruction. If you don't understand it, I could explain it better. Relevance? Essential step in the universality test. If a contradiction or irrationality arises, the maxim cannot be moral. Could you explain this further? Of course. A contradiction is a situation in which your maxim defeats itself. This is one way an idea can fail the universality test. An irrationality is when your maxim would create a world that is worse for wear. Oh dear. That is the other way the universality test can be failed. Interesting. Okay, so what did we get? We didn't get anything here. We just got new statements. Oh, okay, he probably added new things that I need to question. This related to conclusion. It details how a maxim can fail the test. It would not be much of a test if you could not fail. I don't know. I wouldn't mind taking a test like that. Okay. Contradictions are maxims which are inconsistent with themselves. Excuse me? If an idea, after being applied to everyone, creates situations where people may be willed to behave in opposing ways, then your idea is contradictory. As a result, it probably should be considered, or should not be considered. Backing. Of course, I shall provide a case study. Let us imagine a world where it was accepted that one should lie for their own gain. As the advantages of lying come entirely from deceiving those who tell the truth, in a world where everyone lies, there are no advantages at all. In this way, lying for one's gain contains a contradiction. It simply does not make sense when applied as a universal law. Man, this guy really hates lying. This is just one example. Anytime an idea creates inconsistencies with itself, it cannot work. I just got to admit, I am super confused. We presented an idea that you can't lie thanks to the whatever his first thing was. Okay? And now he's saying that there are these universality tests where if you fail that test, then you can't be one of the rules that he had before. But he said that one of the things before was the rule. And now he's saying that if everyone is allowed to lie, then it fails the test. So, like, I'm going in circles again with the lying, and it's confusing. It's very, very confusing. All right, relevance. It elaborates on the nature of the contradiction of failure. Irrationalities create a world which is worse for wear. What do you mean by this? Sometimes the world would clearly be worse off if everyone followed a maxim. For example, if everyone stole from one another, our sense of security would deteriorate. It would be irrational to will such a world to be. Thus, stealing is categorically immoral. Huh, interesting. You're not alone? Okay. Alright, backing. I think this stands pretty solidly. One cannot will a world which would be worse than this one. Interesting. Okay, relevance. Elaborates on the nature of irrationality failure. Okay. Intentionalism. That's very interesting. To go right here with his stealing. That is very interesting. But again, I don't think I have ever used this. Like this slot on anything. So we'll come back to that. But I think this is very interesting. Interesting thing here. I think you had it before. You never addressed the lying thing. Okay. We'll revisit that. Oh God, what do I do? This is getting more and more complicated. Yep, that's Kant for you. Layer after layer after layer after layer of whatever it is he's layering. Back to the top. Okay. So this one is taking off the training wheels because I don't actually think helping a dead man is useful here. Is this the one where he's talking about lying? Yes. But it probably doesn't go here. I think it might go here. Could go here, actually. You beef with his philosophy in the sense that it lives in extremes. The idea that something could be moral, immoral, absolutely leaves so much room for fault, especially when applied situationally. Do you agree it probably doesn't go there? Yeah. I could see it going here. Imagine a world where everyone follows the maxim behind your action. We just outlined that there was a situation where lying is not allowed, basically. So don't do that. Yet there was a situation like that situation is obviously morally correct. And so, you know, what are you gonna do about that? But then right here, we brought up what we believe to be a contradiction to his philosophy by saying that, the lie is there. The metagamer in you says you have to present on one of the two new lines. That's an interesting one, isn't it? That's actually a good point too, Heels, that I wasn't thinking of, but Ace Attorney did something similar to that as well, where you're looking for new evidence and then you take that new evidence and you put the information you have to dispute that. Okay, so contradictions or irrationalities. Let's go through this one again. We're clearly worse off if everyone followed a maxim. For example, if everyone stole from one another, it would be irrational to will such a world. Thus, stealing is categorically immoral. Okay, I'm gonna go with lying again.
Nonsense!
Hold on. The example I pointed out earlier as a problem with the you should never lie principle. That would definitely count as a failure of this test.
Nonsense!
Herr Jones, irrationalities refer to a world that is worse for wear, not a situation. And a world in which you do not lie is clearly better off than a world where you do. But, as I said before, Herr Jones, individual examples desecrate the sanctity of thought. Truly, you should be ashamed of yourself. Individual examples. Don't remember anything? It's just a guess. The other thing Ace Attorney does, though, is provide red herrings in the evidence. Not everything has a use in those cases, and this game is no different. That is true, actually. Okay, so he doesn't want singular examples. He wants things that affect the world. Okay, so I'm gonna use intentionalism, and here's my line of thought here. I'll explain it anyways. He mentioned the stealing thing. If there's a universality rule that everyone can steal, then the world would be worse off for that. But if there's a universality rule that everyone can steal, then that's just the world that you're in. Is the world really worse off for having a rule that you can do something? Like the rule benefits the rule in his philosophy benefits all society. I hope I'm making some sense here, but like, if everyone can steal from each other, everyone benefits from that. Everyone can steal from anyone. If everyone has free speech, anyone has the ability to say anything they want. Everyone benefits from that rule. So it's a very interesting cycle again. So I think I'm gonna go with that and wish luck. Comes the stream, your face is ugly. Nothing to be ashamed of? Half of all people are uglier than average. If you recall, this is somewhat similar to Mills in the sense that the imperatives inherently counter the core idea that intentions are the basis of morality. That is true in that we are trying to find morality here. And sometimes I do lose sight of morality is the end goal. What about this philosophy benefits morality, and what is contradicting the definition of it? What helps define it or something? So what I need to do is I need to find what best I can use intentionalism to contradict what he's saying. And I think I might go with the stealing one. That might not be the right one. Maybe it's the lying one. It could be either of those. But those would also be on the new ones that he presented. So would it be irrationalities, or would it be consistency or contradictions? It's intention based. What does he say about irrationalities again? Okay, this is the stealing one. All right, I'm gonna go with this one. Again, it goes back to if everyone can follow the same rule, that doesn't necessarily mean that the world is worse off when everyone has the same privilege of doing that.
Nonsense!
Immanuel Kant. What is one thing which, from the very beginning of our discussion, you emphasized above all else? Intentionalism, of course. What we will is far more important than what we make. Right, that's what I thought. And that's fascinating, because checking for irrationalities sounds a lot like assessing the consequences to me. What? You claim we cannot will a world that is worse than the one we have now. But the fact is, the very act of assessing how the world would be gives weight to consequences. You'd think that you would throw this out, but instead you have this as a key step in the universality test. Determining whether your maxim is a categorical imperative is thus a fundamentally consequentialist procedure. This is not on my agenda. It is most impractical. I demand you stop at once. But surely you see my point. It's quite ironic, don't you think, that the process which creates the rules for your intentionalist ideas relies so heavily on assessing consequences. You talk about internal contradictions being grounds for failure. Well, here is a grand one for you. The universality test would fail itself. Incredible. It seems to me that either consequences matter or your method of choosing ideas is incorrect. So which is it, Kant? Which part is wrong? Either way, it seems pretty devastating to your ideas. Your thoughts, so disorganized. Order, I need direction. I need 9. Have my philosophical constructs thrown into question? Check. You have done an excellent job here. I would be lying if I said you had not given me much to think about. Perhaps a decade of silence is in order. Silence and thought. Auf Wiedersehen, Herr Jones. Heels, I need a translation. Auf Wiedersehen. Is that and I bid you farewell. Is it over? I think I've heard that before. Auf Wiedersehen? I think that is like Like, I am leaving now, or I will see you again, or something like that. Yeah, I think so. I guess that is all we are going to get out of Kant. I did it! Auf Wiedersehen, until I see you again. Aha! That was close. All right, chapter 6, the end of the road. Let me just drink a little drink a little water.